GOP Congressional candidate Jennifer-Ruth Green is slamming her opponent, Frank J. Mrvan, for allegedly illegally obtaining her sexual assault record from the Air Force and leaking it for a very disgusting, ugly smear story. Now, this story has actually gone nationwide. I've seen this on Fox News. I don't watch Fox News, but I know it's been on there because I've seen clips of it. It's been covered in a bunch of other places too. This story has sort of gone viral across the country about how really this upcoming election cycle is turning very toxic. But really, this is what we really can expect from here on out if Indiana's first district, district that the Democrats have pretty much held unanimously for 90 years, mostly unopposed. If this is really up for grabs, regularly we're going to get a whole lot more of these types of really volatile type situations in this district, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Let me know. 219-885-1371. If you're watching the stream on Facebook, we have the call number up there so you can see what number to call anytime you want. But anyway, Jennifer-Ruth Green is irate after giving an interview with Politico, saying that the magazine published details about her sexual assault while she was serving in the military without permission. Green, who is running for Indiana's 1st Congressional District, has since alleged that her opponent, Representative Frank Mrvan, illegally obtained the information and offered it to the outlet. Politico now insists that it obtained all this information legally by a public records request and provided to Politico by a person outside of the Mrvan campaign. Now, this report was published last week and revealed that Green, while serving as a counterintelligence agent in Iraq, was assaulted by an Iraqi serviceman who grabbed her breast and exposed himself while she and a group of other officers visited the Air Force National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California. I'm sorry. Wow. That's hardcore. But let me just say this before I get back to the story. Look, we can try to be all-inclusive as a society if we want. You know, we can try to be all about equality and women's rights and women's power and all this other stuff. But you got to know, in those other countries, they do not care. Okay? And people from a lot of those other countries, like Iraq or whatever, they do not care about any of your feminist stuff. They don't care about none of that women's rights stuff. Okay? You talking about somebody who would throw a brick at their daughter if she wants to go to school in a lot of these instances. Okay? They do not care. So while I'm all for empowering women, I love watching women's sports. Hell, I'm geeked tomorrow. I suggest everybody run out and watch, in my opinion, the greatest women's boxer of all time, Claressa Shields, defend her titles against Savannah Marshall in what will be probably the biggest women's boxing match in history. It's definitely the biggest women's card in history because it's an all-women's card. It's selling out the arena over there in England. I don't want to say the Wembley Stadium. I don't know which stadium it is, but it's actually a pretty huge deal. So I support women's sports and I support women's rights, okay? But you just have to understand the world that we live in. And when you put American women with these Iraqi service people, I'm sorry, folks, what are you expecting to happen? Okay? And that's not Jennifer-Ruth Green's fault. It is definitely not her fault. Not one bit. No woman deserves that. But I'm somebody raised here in America. Okay? Them Iraqis or whatever coming from one of those countries in the Middle East or that has whatever different culture that they have, they may think that she deserved it. And I'm just saying that this is one of the reasons too why I do not support a military-industrial complex that involves America constantly involving itself in other countries' affairs. Let those people have their societies, their cultures. Stop spending our tax dollars on them. Stop spending our tax dollars on bombing people and then overthrowing governments that cause instability. And then we have to go over there and try to train people, or we have to bring them here and try to train them, and then they can sexually assault our female army service women or whatever. But let's get back to the story, folks. I digress. Furthermore, the outlet wrote that after the assault, Green was told to keep quiet about the incident by her superiors. Wow. Now, again, this is what happens when you have a military-industrial complex. This is what happens when you have all these profitable wars and you have people in the military who are incentivized to keep the gravy train running. That is the goal. They want to keep the gravy train running. Maybe the American public finding out about an American servicewoman being sexually assaulted by an Iraqi serviceman may sour some Americans against the war. Maybe it means that the generals and the war machine may want to scale back a little bit. That means less people get paid, or people get paid a lot less for the defense contractors and the banksters and other people. So again, this is what we are opening up, and they're doing it again in Ukraine right now. As we speak, they sent $100 billion to Ukraine. And I don't know if a lot of you guys saw this, but at the beginning of the war, please stay on hold, caller. I know I see you there, but I got to get through this story. I know I'm being a little bit truculent. But at the beginning of the Ukraine war, they actually told black people, black soldiers, oh, if you over there in Ukraine, if you end up going over there, oh, don't be worried if they call you nigger, or if they say you're a monkey and an ape and all that other stuff. Just play it off. If I'm lying, I'm flying. That was actually sent out by, I want to say, the Peace Corps. Yeah, that's who it is. The Peace Corps actually sent out a memo to African Americans saying that if you end up in Ukraine, be prepared to be called a nigger and a monkey and an ape. Do you see why us involving ourselves in all these foreign wars is a bad idea yet? But I digress again. Let me get back to the story. Green has since written a letter to the relevant U.S. Attorney, Air Force Inspector General, and the Department of Defense asking for a criminal investigation into how the documents were obtained and ultimately provided to Politico. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, Green slammed the article as an ugly smear intended to paint her as a disgraced military officer. She also said that she refuses to allow Mrvan to get the play that he wants with the article, asserting that she won't be silenced and she represents the other sexual assault survivors. Sidebar. Okay, sidebar. Now she's playing this for politics. Okay, I could even see if you were with her at first. Now she's trying to play this for political gain. You know, I'm sorry if you were sexually assaulted. You didn't deserve that, especially not in your own country. Because this happened in California. This wasn't even over there in Iraq. They brought the Iraqis here, and they did that. And whoever that was should have been horsewhipped and sent back to Iraq, but whatever. Hey, I'm not in charge. I ain't in charge. Woo, not yet. But anyway, Green and Mrvan are set to face off in a highly anticipated election on November 8th, with the winner poised to take over the district that has voted Democratic for over 90 years. Okay. Now, let me just say this. Congressman Frank Mrvan has denied all this. Okay? And he has a whole side of this story as well. Okay, he's saying that a mob that essentially Jennifer-Ruth Green has incited a mob of her social media supporters to subject Frank J. Mrvan and his wife Jane and their children to vile insults and implied threats to their safety. Wow. Now, again, Politico is saying that they obtained her military service by filing a standard request for the documents using a Federal Freedom of Information Act. Not that anyone associated with Mrvan's campaign actually did it. In an exclusive interview with The Times, Mrvan also said that neither he nor anyone affiliated with his campaign provided Green's military service to Politico. So he's definitely denying this. Now, Jane Mrvan, who is Frank J. Mrvan's wife, and also she says a childhood sexual assault survivor, says that her social media outlets have been full of Jennifer-Ruth Green supporters accusing her husband of sexually abusing Jennifer-Ruth Green without even knowing that she herself is a victim of childhood sexual abuse. Now, Frank Mrvan, being a politician, has to spin this back towards Jennifer-Ruth Green and use this politically, because he's saying now that the sexual assault perpetrated against his wife and her late sister, I don't know why he had to bring the dead sister into this, but the sexual assault abuse perpetrated against his wife and her late sister when they were children inspired his entire career in public service, advocating and acting on behalf of all sexual assault survivors. Mrvan actually did develop the No More Secrets campaign to raise awareness of child sexual abuse among some 1,200 students here in Northwest Indiana, elementary, middle, and high school, which is a good thing. I'm glad he did that. Earlier this year, Mrvan also won overwhelming bipartisan support in the U.S. House for legislation to require members of the Department of Veteran Affairs Boards of Veteran Appeals to undergo annual military sexual trauma training to better understand the healthcare needs and the claims filed by veterans who experienced sexual trauma during their military service. Mrvan also says that he successfully earmarked $750,000 in federal funds for the Fairhaven Rape Crisis Center in Highland. Now you guys may want to listen to this next part, okay? Records show that one of the most widely seen attacks on Frank J. Mrvan was tweeted by Greg Price, senior digital strategist at X Strategies LLC, who described Mrvan as a Democrat lowlife to his nearly 171,000 Twitter followers, including U.S. Representative Jim Banks from Fort Wayne. Now, the FEC has shown that Jennifer-Ruth Green's campaign paid Florida-based X Strategies $4,000 for campaign consulting and social media services. So what this looks like is that on some level that this has been an orchestrated attack on Mrvan, funded by Green and her allies. But what do you guys think? We have callers. Hello, caller.
Yes.
Yes, hello. This is Free Speech Friday. What's up? What's on your mind?
What I wanted to talk about was that wanting to arm yourself so you can protect yourself. Listen, my husband and I, we arm ourselves. We live here in Indiana, and I feel safe.
Well, all right.
And I look forward to like the element of surprise, because we elderly, and I look at it like we don't start no stuff, but if you bring it, you're gonna be getting a lot.
Well, all right. All right. Well, thank you for your call. I have another call on the line. Hello, caller.
Good evening. I want to, when I read that story about Jennifer-Ruth Green.
Mm-hmm.
It never made sense to me.
It doesn't.
Because, that's not, something somebody would look down on her about. In fact, some women would sympathize with her.
Exactly.
It wouldn't help Mrvan that she was, for him to say, oh, she was sexually abused. Well, a lot of people that, didn't know that would say, oh, that's terrible, and maybe help her.
Right.
Instead of hitting her. So, and it is that all that information is available.
Right.
It's available. Nobody had to steal it. Nobody had to do anything.
Exactly.
It's available to get. So I think it's a ploy on her part.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for your call. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree after I read this story. And once especially I saw that the whole social media campaign against Mrvan and his wife was really elevated and sort of amplified by X Strategies, which is a company that Jennifer-Ruth Green's campaign actually paid $4,000 to. You can go to the FEC and it's been disclosed. And to me, it becomes very apparent what this looks like, okay? This looks like Jennifer-Ruth Green knew that the story was going to come out, but somehow wanted to find a way to spin it like Frank J. Mrvan is the reason that it came out. As our last caller said, who would look down on Jennifer-Ruth Green for being sexually assaulted by an Iraqi who was brought to this country to train and learn something from her? Like, who would look down on that? If anything, that would make us look down on the military machine that put her in that situation. The people who put her in that situation, that definitely wouldn't make us look down on her. I can't see that. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I absolutely agree with the caller. It sounds like this whole thing was sort of astroturfed by the Green campaign. But let me get this next caller. Hello, caller.
Hey, Scott.
What's up?
I just want to give you kudos, man, because you are a person that do research.
Well,
you don't just read the newspaper and go at what the newspapers say. You dive deep.
Well, I do my best.
When you say what you say, you can back it up because of the research you've done, because you got people that will do shows and will make comments based off their feelings and not the facts. So, man, I just want to give you kudos for your show, man. And not just your show, but for the time and the effort that you take to do the research. That way when you speak about something, because as we know, sometimes numbers don't mean nothing because anybody can make up numbers. It's just like when they had the thing saying, well, Gary was the most unlike city to live in. How do you know that? Who did you poll?
Right.
Versus the people that live here and say, hey, I ain't got no problem with Gary at all. And it's not even in fact the people that live here, the people that own business here, the people that invest here. We have no problem with Gary at all. Right. So, man, I just want to give you kudos for the research you do.
Well, thank you, brother.
And the time that you take to do what you do, man.
Well, all right. Thank you, brother. Please stay with us here on WLTH 1370 AM. Free Speech Friday. Just don't curse. Don't take up too much of our time. We only got 2 hours here. We'll be right back. When we get back, we're going to talk about what one of our earlier callers just talked about. Sisters. Sisters are picking up the guns. Okay? A lot of y'all trying to be my Dia out here. Okay? I'm not trying to mess with some of y'all. So if you're a black woman who owns a gun or who wants to own a gun, please give us a call. If you're just a brother or sister who has an opinion about black people being such a fast-growing group of gun owners, give me a call, 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. We'll be right back. Free Speech Friday.